statistical system, and then how can we as Africa ecosystem participate in the working group. So Prof, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alan. A very, very good morning. I wish to take the opportunity to thank you, Professor Nikweno, the organizers of the African Internet Summit, for this opportunity. It is indeed a privilege for me to address this room and to do so just 3 days after our very own working group concluded a milestone 2-day sessions hosted at the International Telecommunication Union here in Geneva on 18th to 19th June. I wish I was with all of you in the room, but due to unavoidable schedules here in Geneva, I am unable to do so, but I am with you in spirit. My name is Ambassador Professor Mohamedou Ka. I am from the Gambia, and I'm the Gambian ambassador to Switzerland, as well as the permanent representative of the Gambia to the United Nations organizations here in Geneva, ITU, WTO, WIPO, WMO, WHO. I cover a whole lot of organizations and international organizations here as a multilateral diplomat as well. I also chair the outgoing chair of the UN Commission for Science, Technology, and Development, and currently serving as its vice chair. In addition, I also serve as the vice chair of the UN Working Group on Data Governance tasked to the CSTD. Among other roles, I'm also the coordinator for the WTO, the World Trade Organization's least developing countries here in Geneva. And in WIPO, I chair the high-level conversations on artificial intelligence and frontier technologies here in Geneva. So I speak today as a vice chair of the UN Commission for Science, Technology, Development Working Group on Data Governance, representing state members alongside our chairman here, Ambassador Guilherme de Aguirre Patriota of Brazil, and my fellow vice chair who comes from the non-state actors, Claire Melamed, representing the non-state members. Excellencies and delegates, I want to open with a simple proposition. For Africa, data governance is not an abstract policy exercise. It is the difference between shaping the rules of the data economy or simply living by rules written elsewhere. For everything I share today is in service of one goal: helping the engagements in the room to decide deliberately which side of that line we want to be on. Mr. Moderator, you asked a question: why did the UN task the Commission of Science, Technology, and Development with the working group, and what is our mandate? Delegates in the room, in 2024, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution A/Res/79/1, which most of you know as the Global Digital Compact. Within the Digital Compact and in this resolution, the General Assembly recognized something many of us in this room already knew from your diverse experiences: that data is now central to sustainable development, to economic transformation, to scientific progress, and the functioning of digital societies. But I submit to you, delegates, the resolution also named the risk plainly. Without equitable, interoperable, and trusted data governance, we deepen global inequalities, fragment digital ecosystems, and limit the ability of African countries and by extension developing countries to participate meaningfully in the data economy. So to respond, the General Assembly requested that the Commission on Science and Technology for Development, which is referred to as the CSTD, to establish a multi-stakeholder working group on data governance at all levels as relevant for development. Our task as the Commission is a comprehensive, inclusive dialogue on how data should be governed to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. And our expected deliverables is recommendations for consideration by the 84th session of the UN General Assembly coming up. And the General Assembly's expectation, I submit, is not abstract principle setting. It is a mandate to produce something usable, which is recommendations that African countries, developing countries, the global south can actually act on. Now, the second question, Mr. Moderator, is how does this working group relate to the CSTD, other commissions, particularly the official statistics, and the Global Digital Compact I mentioned, and of course, the emerging conversation on AI governance? Delegates, the Commission for Science Technology for Development, as I mentioned, is the United Nations principal intergovernmental body on science, technology, and innovation policy for development. So situating this working group there is deliberate. It means our recommendations are anchored in development outcomes and not just technical or commercial interests. Very important point. Our work also speaks to the official statistics community. Principles we have identified, such as data quality, transparency, and accountability, echo long-standing statistical principles, and we have been careful to complement that system and not to duplicate it. On the Global Digital Compact I mentioned earlier, this working group is one of the Global Digital Compact's concrete delivery mechanisms. We are not a freestanding initiative. We are how the Compact's data governance commitment gets implemented. And while I am at it, and on artificial intelligence, this is, I think, and I submit to you, the single most important insight to emerge from our deliberations so far. Data governance is the foundation of artificial intelligence governance. We mostly talk about AI governance, forgetting this fundamental importance. Data governance is the foundation of AI governance. AI systems, as I'm sure you will all appreciate, depend entirely on how data is collected, accessed, shared, used, and safeguarded across its life cycle. We all know the model reliability, these LLMs, their explainability, their fairness, and their accountability. Every one of these AI governance concerns traces back to a data governance choice made upstream. For our continent, Africa, this means a national artificial intelligence strategy that is not built on a solid data governance foundation is building on sandy beaches or sand. On the other question I hear the moderator is, what is our working group structure? What is our working method? And what is our broader impact? This might be in the minds of some of you as well. We just completed a zero draft, and our zero draft is organized into 5 chapters. Chapter 1 sets out the mandate and context. Chapter 2 establishes fundamental principles, which is anchored in human rights. And Chapter 3 addresses how the benefits of data should be shared equitably. And Chapter 4 covers interoperability between national, regional, and international systems. And Chapter 5 addresses safe, secure, and trusted data flows, including across borders. Our method is genuinely multi-stakeholder. Written submissions from the member states and observers, verbal deliberations in our plenaries, zero draft chapters produced by volunteer drafters and reviewers, and an iterative refinement. And most recently, as I mentioned in my opening, at the International Telecommunication Union, we held our session, our 2-day session, to deliberate on the zero draft that was produced along these 5 chapters. Why does this matter beyond our own process? Delegates, because these recommendations go to the 81st UN General Assembly. This is very important globally. They have real potential to become a reference architecture, the way the Global Digital Compact itself has become a touchstone. I submit to all of you that if our continent, Africa, is well represented in shaping this text, I submit it shapes the rules. If not, our continent, Africa, risks becoming what our own Chapter 4 warns against, which is a rule taker rather than a rule shaper. Now, I also wanted to share with you on how can stakeholders such as yourselves get involved, and how is the African Internet Summit's leadership and membership can participate, and also how our group's leadership and membership is structured at the Working Group on Data Governance. Our leadership of the Working Group on Data Governance reflects the multi-stakeholder design at its core. Ambassador Patriota of Brazil, who is the permanent representative of Brazil here in Geneva, chairs the group today. I serve as vice chair representing member states, and Ms. Claire Melamed serves as the vice chair representing non-state members, including civil society. This working group of data governance was established during my own tenure as the chairman of the Commission for Science, Technology, and Development. Upon receiving the General Assembly's request to establish it, during my tenure, I nominated the late Peter Major, may his soul rest in peace, who was appointed as the founding chairman of the Working Group on Data Governance. He then in turn nominated Claire and my humble self for our CSTD Bureau's approval, and we were all appointed to serve as vice chairs representing state members and non-state members, respectively. Following Peter's passing as our founding chair, I stepped in as interim chair before subsequently handing over the chairmanship to Ambassador Patriota of Brazil, who is our current chair, and then I returned to my role as the vice chair of the working group on data governance representing member states. That continuity matters. It reflects a group committed to its mandate beyond any one individual. The structure itself, I submit to you, delegates in the room, is very unusual for United Nations processes. Member states and non-state actors, private sector, civil society, the technical community, academia, are not consulted from the sidelines. What is unique is they are co-drafters. Submissions from observers carry real weight in our zero draft chapters and not a footnote or a periphery. So, how does this room of very diverse, thoughtful leaders get involved? The way you get involved, which I will encourage and challenge each one of you, is to submit written contributions to any chapter. Volunteer as a drafter or reviewer. Attend sessions in person or online. You can go to the website of the UN Commission of Science and Technology on the section of the Working Group on Data Governance. You will find in the archives our reports as well as more detailed information. You can also reach out to, if you can take a moment to write the email address, which I will share with Prof. Nikiono to share with all of you. The email address is cstd-datagov@un.org. Again, cstd-datagov@un.org. Or you can search my name on LinkedIn and drop me a message. I'll be happy to connect. And a specific word to Africa. You are already in this text. The African Union's data policy framework and its compact data categorization and sharing frameworks are cited directly in our drafts. But I submit to you that citation is not the same as authorship. We need more African submissions, not only from the states, but from civil society and our diverse technical community in this room. So what is our progress to date? All 5 chapters now exist in zero draft form with genuine areas of convergence. We agree that human rights form the foundation. We also agree that governance needs both universal principles and sector-specific adaptation. We continue to advance the importance of convergence on a stewardship model of sovereignty. Very difficult conversations, I must say, because there is a different perspective of view of data sovereignty. And most African, I would say all African member states and the Global South by extension advocates and insist on the stewardship model of sovereignty. Rather than treating data as something simply owned, we are exploring frameworks where states, communities, and individuals act as stewards, which helps reconcile national authority with indigenous data rights and individual control. We also agree interoperability is a necessary but not sufficient enabling conditions. Federated, decentralized architectures offer a path to reconcile interoperability with sovereignty, rather than trading one for the other. Delegates, we have also deliberately kept some questions open rather than paper over disagreements. How far legal harmonization should go, what role the private sector should play in critical digital infrastructure, and how our frameworks should evolve to address agentic artificial intelligence systems that don't fit our existing models of attributable discrete data records. So our sessions in Geneva this past week refined every chapter and captured further constructive inputs from member states and observers alike. I want to acknowledge our volunteer drafters and reviewers and the International Telecommunications Union's continued partnership in hosting and supporting this work. And I also request that all of you in the room join this very important work. Let me conclude. Let me bring this home to Africa specifically. Our chapter 3 names a structural problem directly. Value capture in the data economy concentrates downstream in analytics, in monetization, in reuse, while at upstream contributors, often farmers, our smallholder farmers, statistical bodies, public institutions in the global south and across Africa, receive limited or indirect returns. That is not an abstract equity concern. I submit it is the lived experiences of being a data-rich, value-poor continent unless we all collectively act and are awake and get engaged and get involved with each other, with our friends around the world. We need each other as we move forward. But our drafts also point to real pathways forward, many already rooted on our continent. The African Union Data Policy Framework, Estonia's X road model now adopted in Burkina Faso. I'm sure some of members from Burkina Faso are in the room. Investment models in digital public goods and infrastructure that lower barriers for African small and medium-sized enterprises and our rising creators and innovators. So as vice chairman of the working group and as the CSTD vice chair the CSTD first chair who first set this working group in motion, my own contribution have focused on three things: helping establish this working group and ensuring continuity of its mandate through a difficult leadership transition, pushing for the explicit institutional recognition that data governance underpins artificial intelligence governance, and advocating that capacity building, meaningful capacity building, be treated as a precondition for equitable participation, not an afterthought once the rules are already written. My ask of this room is very simple. Very simple. Do not wait to be consulted. Submit your reviews, volunteer to draft and review, attend our sessions in person or online. The recommendations going to the 81st General Assembly at the UN will shape the rules this continent either help write or must live under. Africa has the talent, as demonstrated in the room, the data, and increasingly the institutional frameworks to be a rule shaper in global data governance. Let us make sure we show up as one. I thank you, Mr. Moderator. I had several questions for your reflections, but I will save it from now because I know you have other speakers. But if people need to get in touch with me, please feel free to look for me online, on LinkedIn. Just type my name and send me an invite, and I will be very happy to connect to continue this discussion. Thank you so much. God bless, and I wish you very fruitful engagement. And please, please, please get involved, add your voice to this effort, and check the UN CSTD website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A round of applause for Professor. Thank you very much, very, very much for addressing all the questions very well. I noted something Ambassador said, if we don't act, we may be rule taker instead of being a rule shaper. Okay, and he also said that Africa, we are data rich, but we may be value poor if we don't act. And he said we should also contribute to the working group, okay, as by submitting or reviewing the draft. So, any urgent comment or question to Ambassador, because we have time management. Prof, any? No. Okay, so Ambassador, thank you very much. I know you had other commitment, but if time allows, you want to stay with us. Thank you very much. But any final advice or something?
No, just thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to share these very humble thoughts and insights on what we are doing around data. And I just wanted to say that we have Africans who are part of the working group from our governments as well as from non-state actors, civil society, academia, private sector, who are members of the working group, and others have signed up just to be observers. So I wholeheartedly encourage all of you to get involved and make it your business, because our business, and we don't want the rules to be given to us. We want to shape the rules, co-architect, co-design, co-own, and extract meaningful value for our population. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. So now let's move to the WDO perspective.